Hello and welcome to the GW28 edition of the FPL Scope podcast. I am your host Matthias, and with me today I have, as always, my co-hosts, or usually my co-host Kevin. And luckily we were able to find a time for this week to have a podcast as well, because it was kind of a bit difficult. I had an early shift at work yesterday, which meant I couldn't record it at my normal time, but now we actually found a time that worked for both of us. So happy to see you here, Kevin, and happy to have you, especially now in this week, for one particular reason, and that's the fact that West Ham have beaten Everton this past week. So I'm pretty happy about that. 3-1, Souček again, haunting Everton. Pretty happy about that in general. But I'm not going to bother you with that first and foremost, because this is a pretty important game week. Game week 28. It's a double game week for two teams, and that is Bournemouth and Luton. And currently, Luton players are getting a lot of traction, especially for those of you guys like Kevin who don't have a free hit or are not going to use a free hit for Game 29, because Luton have a double in 28 and then they also play in 29, which is really nice. So a really popular transfer this week is Haaland to Carlton Morris, and I see a lot of other Luton players coming in. Some people are even doing three City players like Ake, Foden and Haaland for like Doughty, Barkley and Morris. So how hyped are you about these Luton players in general, or are you just not buying the hype at all when it comes to Luton?
I mean, I don't understand why people are so hyped up on them. Morris is one thing because I think he's been sort of decent in especially in the game against Aston Villa. But like even if you look at him, like he went in a purple patch and then like they start losing every game as well. Like I guess it's not his fault. So in that regards, I think he's the most consistent player that you can get. But would I go as far as to triple up on them? Probably not. And I'm desperate to have players actually play then. So, like, there could be discussions on whether I should get Barkley instead of Richarlison, who we don't know the prognosis for, Pedro Porro. Do I get Doughty in for him and all this type of stuff? But at the end of the day, they are losing every game.
Yeah.
They are playing Bournemouth away in the second game, and Crystal Palace, who have sort of new manager
New manager
bounce. I
bounce.
wouldn't go as far as that, but at least they're showing consistency at home. So, do I back them to do anything in this game week? No. Okay. We come from a Holland KDB disaster
Jesus.
class. Are we now meant to put our fate into Carlton Morris and Ross Barkley? I don't know. I think it's fair enough if it works out, and to everyone who has Carlton Morris, if he goes crazy, fuck you and well done. But I personally don't buy the hype. I would rather, and I think my strategy is actually to get two Bournemouth players for this game week.
Yeah, I mean, that's also something you can do. Obviously, Bournemouth have a lot better fixtures. And for me, as someone that is free hitting in 29 with my free hit left, avoiding Luton is pretty much just like maybe I'll go for Doughty. I still haven't decided completely yet. But yeah, I don't really want any Luton players long term. So I'm probably going to just go away from them and go with Bournemouth players instead for me with a free hit in 29. But obviously, it's a bit different for anyone else who, especially if you need the money and you need a cheap player like Carlton Morris, for example, up front, then I could get it in terms of buying him. But yeah, in general, not too hyped about Luton myself either. When it comes to Bournemouth, then, you said you might bring in two Bournemouth players. So you seem a bit more um, excited about Bournemouth players. But they don't play in 29, though, which is the game week where you need every player you can get, basically. So how do you work around that in terms of Bournemouth players? They have two matches at least between Game 28 and Game 29. So that's as many as the teams that don't play in 29. Or it's as most as basically any team apart from Luton, because they have three fixtures, the only team with three fixtures in those two game weeks. But they also have the two best fixtures, Sheffield United and Luton at home. So yeah, you don't really need to speak too much about it because yeah, Bournemouth players, you said you are probably bringing in two players, so it seems like you're pretty hyped up on them. But apart from Solanke, any other Bournemouth players that like you fancy, for example?
Yeah, the defender that plays for them.
Sabarni,
No, the
Kirkis.
wing. Yeah, exactly. The wing back. I think he's looked pretty interesting and it's created a lot of chances and stuff. So yeah, he's a cheap enabler as well. So that's the main reason why I was considering him. But
Yeah.
that being said, I do have to look out for game week 29. So maybe I'll cool it a little bit and just go for Solanke as my
Yeah.
only sole transfer this week. But the only thing that I hate about taking Solanke or Holland out, especially before a big game like this, is I've seen it by people in the past. I mean, yes, it's Anfield, yes, it's worth the sort of transfer to bring him in, but like I'm getting sick and tired of Tony as well. So
Yeah, but he
and
plays
I
in 29, so you're sort of stuck with him.
yep,
Plays against Burnley in 29 as well. The best fixture, probably.
yeah. I mean, it's no Sheffield United, but yeah.
Yeah. But either way, let's go look at your team in general and look at your score for game 27, which wasn't, by all things considered, not the worst week. You have a lot of injuries. You have basically you have had to focus your team on game 29 as well, so that has also hampered your team. But 73 points is not too bad in this game week, even though it was a high scoring game week. It's still a decent score in a pretty high scoring game week in general. But your thoughts about the game week in general? You did the early transfer of De Bruyne to Son, and that worked out. 2 points from De Bruyne, 7 points from Son. Maybe you expected more from Son in that game, but yeah, he at least got the goal in the end. So how did you feel about game 27 in general and the players that you had in that game week? Because you have a couple of duds, but you have a couple of studs as well. So how do you reckon game week 27 went for you in general?
Yeah, I think it generally speaking went fine, or maybe should have had the balls to have gone with a differential captain like Watkins or Son in that regards. But I felt that Holland was going to do something, and unfortunately, he was kind of iced out of the game thanks to a certain Swedish center back. So, yeah, it's just crazy to see that he got iced out of the game as much as he did. He also got super unlucky with the sort of tap in that went too high, and
Yeah.
which is one of the wildest misses I've seen someone of his caliber doing. But at the end of the day, I don't feel too hard done by considering the fact that everyone captained him. So had he gone ape shit and I had gone for, let's say, Watkins, and it still ended up being lower than what a potential hole on hole was, you know, it's hindsight at the end of the day. So I am not too fussed. I am a bit annoyed with Estupinian because I'm sick and tired of his bullshit. I'm sick and tired of Brighton. I've told you I hate De Serbi for a long time. I hope Barcelona do not pay the 12 fucking million to get him into the club. Fuck off. If why should we bring in a coach who has just stagnated completely? And you know what? I love Ansu Fati, but I hope Roma are beating them more than 1-0. Yeah, 2-0 Lukaku gets in. Fuck
Oh,
off,
really?
Brighton. Yeah.
Okay, I can't remember exactly, but that means something for Bournemouth's chances of doubling in 34 as well, which might actually like really affect your plans as well. Because if they are doubling in 34, seeing as you don't have a wildcard left either, that might actually alter your plans quite a lot if they have a higher likelihood of playing in 34. But I think actually losing to Roma will mean that they are less likely to double in 34, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, I have to brush up on that in general. But yeah, this game, it could have gone even worse for you as well in terms of, or even worse, it could have gone a lot worse for you. It went pretty well for you, but you don't have Saka, and you haven't had Saka for a while because you've been focused on giving 29 basically. And he got only 7 points in a game where they won 6-0 against Sheffield United, and he got all his points in the first half because he was subbed off at the half. So it could have gone a lot worse, and it went pretty well this game week. So I think you should be pretty happy in general. Obviously, the injuries are worrying. A lot of the players that you did bring in for game 29, Pinnock, Pedro Porro, Richarlison, currently out, and we still have to wait and see what happens there. I don't think Richarlison or Pedro Porro are back in training yet, but they might still make it for 29. So I don't know. I think they are just people you just need to hold for now and see what happens. They do have good fixtures after 29 as well, seeing as you are not going to wildcard out of the team either. So I'd probably just stick with them and hope that they play in 29 at least for now. But yeah, it will be interesting to see your journey this season with the team you have and the chips that you have left. Basically, only the bench boost. Yeah, it's going to be a pretty interesting road to go because most people have like a chip strategy thing now. When are they going to free it? When are they going to wildcard? All that stuff. And you to put it on the positive spin. You don't have to worry about that at least. So yeah, but 73 points, not the worst game week for you. Estepinian, annoying. Taylor, 1 point, as expected, I guess. Tony, sort of low-key stinking up the place the last few game weeks. Had a couple tough matches, so maybe that's partly why he's been struggling. Now it's Arsenal as well next game week. So, but yeah, he's again someone you need to keep for 29. So, gotta just make the most of it. Let's move on to Kimo's score for Gaming 27. He scored 87 points, really nice. He did the template move as always, Hong Hee-chan to Son. I shouldn't really chastise him too much for being templates because I've been pretty template myself lately, but 13 points from Areola from Kimo. He's actually been sort of stuck, quote unquote, Areola in goal for most of the season now, and Areola is now the highest scoring goalkeeper in the game. Mostly down to like 5 game weeks where he had pretty tough matches where most people benched him and he got a lot of points. But Kimo just keeps getting a lot of points from him. Areola has been like his biggest savior this season, I think, in general. Kimo also had Bradley with 8 points for Liverpool. Really nice differential there. Foden with the 15 points, just like with your team. Watkins with 13 points, just like in your team. He benched Gordon for 8 points when he could have benched Solanke, I guess. But he did ask in the group chat, asked us to who to play out of Bradley and Branthwaite and who to play out of Foden and Gordon. And we mentioned Bradley and Foden rather than Gordon and Branthwaite, and that ended up being the correct decision. So, yeah, happy about that, at least from our end. But yeah, Gaming 27 score from Kimo. Any comments about him? What do you think about his team? Not a lot of players from Gaming 29, so do you think he should free it in 29? Or what is your general thoughts about the strategy if you had all your chips left? What would you be looking to do? Free it in 29, or do you prefer free hitting when it's a double game week? In general, do you prefer free hitting in a blank game week or a double game week? You think that's like the better thing?
I think generally speaking, it's safer to do it on a blank game week, but it's slightly more boring in that regards because you can only take it from X amount of teams, and not said teams can also be dog shit. Like we could end up in a position where it's like a bunch of terrible 1-1 draws and all this type of stuff, which would obviously suck. So I'd say play it safe with that in mind, because you have a good team set up, just generally speaking, for future usage. It's just a question of down the line, maybe that you have to get rid of Trippier now that he's been just blanking left and right.
And he's injured now as well. Got injured.
Yeah,
he got 1 point when they finally got a clean sheet. He was injured in the 52nd minute or something. So
yeah,
really bad luck there for Kimo in general.
Yeah, so I think it's time to get rid of him and see what else. Is he gonna have the balls to get rid of Holland for Morris? I highly doubt it. I don't think you'd have to do that just yet, but we'll see what he ends up doing. But I think for this game week and for the score, yeah, it's as good as it gets. It's just unlucky that Trippier didn't get more. Solanke is the most frustrating FPL player to have because it's either 13 points or it's 2 points. It's just not a like that's why people used to hate on Harry Kane. Oh, Harry Kane, he gets 7 points, 8 points, yeah, like every week, or rather than just stinking up the place. So it's unlucky, and of course he could have maybe a bench Gordon for Solanke, but we didn't know for sure whether Solanke would miss the game. But you can't complain over an 85. It's green arrows across the board as well. So
yeah, I think what you bring up there with people complaining about Kane just being consistently 6 and 7 points, it's sort of is a nice, I don't know if allegory is the right word, but it's sort of like a nice comparison to what free hitting in 29 compared to free hitting in 34 feels like, because like you said, free hitting in 29 could be really boring and it's sort of the more safe option. And I do think people prefer to get like 50 points in Gaming 29 and then 150 points in Gaming 34 rather than getting 100 points in 29 and 100 points in 34. It's the same amount of points, but people just prefer to have that high score. That's always been like a bias, I think, in people in general. So yeah, I think Gaming 29 free hit is pretty nice for especially teams like me and Kimo's. Kimo already has a lot of Newcastle players. You did mention selling Trippier. Maybe he should do that, but at the same time, Trippier is doubling in 34. So maybe you should keep him for that as well. That's something he has to decide. Gordon is a nice player to have for that double game week as well in 34. So I think Kimo's pretty well set up for the future in general with his team. So we'll see that at the end of the video. We're gonna talk more about the plans for Game 28. But you did mention it's about as good as it gets with 85 points, but that's not entirely true because Kimo is not the manager of the week. There is a different manager of the week who has quite a lot more points, but that's also down to the fact that he used the bench boost this week. So let's look at the manager of the week. And that is David Sorley. It sounds like a Norwegian name even, but 114 points with the bench boost. Really helped with Ariola's 13-pointer off the bench. Most people couldn't really have a nice score from Ariola, but Kimo did, starting him, and this guy as well did also with Ariola from the bench boost. And looking at it, I think it's a pretty good bench boost in general. Ariola against Everton, it was pretty lucky that I got all those points. It's from the penalty save, but he did make a lot of saves and did have a really good match. Like, he's the reason West Ham won that match. In general, Solanke against Burnley at home, that makes sense as a bench boost. Gusto against Newcastle, he was in my free team personally as well for this game week, so he makes sense for a bench boost. He got an assist against Brentford, so could have had more points as well if they kept a clean sheet. And then Walker against Man United, where if it wasn't for that Rashford Rockets, they would have kept the clean sheet most likely. So I think it was a pretty good bench boost decision in general, and he did get rewarded from it, but it was just mainly just Ariola, who was probably his worst benched player pretty much in this squad. But general, huge score, double Arsenal defense, Gabriel and Saliba. That has probably helped him a lot lately. Van Dijk, just like me, 6 points from him. Dubravka, 7 points. His whole team basically returned, apart from Solanke and Walker. So can't really go much better than that. He could have had a different captaincy choice again, obviously. But yeah, captaining Haaland was sort of the template and most sensible move as well. And if he had scored that major chance, who knows what could have happened in that game as well for Haaland. But yeah, looking at this team, do you agree with the bench boost? Do you think it's a nice decision, or do you think you should have probably saved it for like a double game week and stuff? Or what's your thoughts about, again, more chip strategy now, but what do you think about the bench boost? You've obviously used it yourself in a game week where you had single game week players, but how important is it to have double game week players on your bench boost if you're using it yourself?
I mean, I think it's I think there's a big divide when it comes to playing fantasy with feeling and playing fantasy in terms of like an analytical side of you and stuff like that. And I think more often than not, like, I don't feel like this was a calculated risk. Like, I think he just got feeling and did it and reaped the rewards because this is great. And I think bench boost should be treated more like that because there's so many times where people are like, oh, let's bench boost this. And like, we've done the maths and we've done the statistics where, like, when we bench boost in the past, we have hurt our team in the long run because
Yeah,
we tried to set up like the ultimate bench boost. This goes
exactly.
back into what you were saying about sort of the going for 100 plus points and
Yeah,
all this type of stuff rather than going
maximizing
for
the bench
just,
boost points
yeah.
rather than having a
Um,
long-term future. Yeah,
yeah, so I think personally with bench boost, it's the one that you can have a little bit more fun with. I mean, of course, if a bench boost goes exactly how we all envision, like where you double up on this player, that player, and
yeah,
they all, do great, or, someone reaps the reward, like someone goes crazy for like 20 points, like back in the day when I believe it's like everyone either decided between DS or Stones, and it ended up being Stones that was the one
yeah,
that everyone should have gotten, and all this type of stuff. Like, these are all scenarios where everything goes exactly right. So I don't feel the urge to like get angry at someone for bench boosting when they sort of feel like it. And if it works out, great. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But you can always plan for X and Y and things go straight to hell. Holland on a triple captaincy on the most captained player in FPL, and he only got 30 points as a triple captain. We could have easily just triple captained him against some dog shit team and it would have been the same results or much better even. So I yeah, I think people get bogged down too much on the details of these sort of chips. So I think just don't do what I did. I had way too much fun with it, but like be a bit more strategic and just go with feeling as well at the end of the day. I don't
Yeah,
think you have to, it has to be the most optimal thing on the planet for it to work out. So
yeah.
do like what this guy did.
Yeah, I think he made the right decision bench boosting this week as well. And for me, I'm pretty happy with my own tactic. I'm most likely going to wildcard in 36 and then bench boost in 37, so I just get it immediately after I done my wildcard. I think that's like the ideal thing to do. But a lot of people will wildcard in like 30 and then free hit in 34 and then have a bench boost in 37, for example. But I think like this guy, if you have a week where it looks really, really good on paper and you don't even necessarily have double game week players, you just have 2 or 3 players that you don't want to bench, play the bench boost if you feel like it, because you never know. Like you said, could get injuries and stuff. All of a sudden, you are left with not enough players, and you have to do a -8 to get like the 20 points on the bench boost, rather than just doing it like this guy and getting 22 points from the bench boost without like thinking about it even. And now he doesn't have to worry about the bench boost. He doesn't have to worry about his bench being super good. He can just have really cheap players, and that will really open up his team for the future of this season as well. Doesn't really have to worry about having the ideal squad the whole time around. So yeah, I think you could also go with feeling like this guy did and just get it in a week where you have a lot of players that you do like on your bench. So yeah, I think that's a good tactic as well. And that helped David Surly or David Surly. I don't know how you say it. I think it's English actually. It sounds like a really Norwegian name or a Scandinavian name. Surly would be like a thing if you had a Ö instead of a O. But yeah, he's actually English from what it says on the page at least, FPL page. 114 points, manager of the week. And if you guys watching want to be manager of the week on this podcast as well, you can just join our mini league with the FPL Scope mini league code being V9JT0D. And if you have the highest score in a particular game week, you will be featured on this podcast as David Surly or David Sorley, however you say his name. Did just now. So we're also going to talk about his plans for the next game week as well, but that's at the very end of the video. So let's move on to the next segment, and that is the predictions from this past week. And we did, well, it looks pretty brutal at the start there with a lot of red results. We couldn't really get any results correctly. Brentford Chelsea, we both missed the draw there. We had a Chelsea win, both of us. Everton West Ham, neither of us had faith in West Ham, and they ended up winning the game, quite undeservedly so, I would say. Fulham Brighton, we did not expect Fulham to just completely destroy Brighton, but that's just how it is with these two teams. I think they are two really unpredictable teams. You think of sort of Brighton as a really good or as a good team and Fulham as a bad team, but basically they're really inconsistent and just like different ends of the table. So like Brighton are like right above 10th and really inconsistent, and Fulham are like right below 10th and really inconsistent, and that could lead up to Fulham just winning huge like they did in this game as well. Newcastle Wolves, you sort of had this as an even game, but Wolves just have so many injury issues that Newcastle won the game, so we got that incorrectly as well. But from that point on, we had all matches at least correct result, not a correct scoreline. I had one correct scoreline in Spurs Palace ending 3-1. You had 3-0 there for Spurs. Nottingham Forest against Liverpool, we had the opposite. Basically, I had 3-0 for Liverpool, you had 3-1, but that ended up just being a really late 1-0 winner for Liverpool. And actually, I just want to talk about that in general. The Liverpool goal, scoring so far into injury time, even past injury time as well. What did you make of that goal and in general?
I have nothing to say. If I say something, I'll get fined. So
Yeah, sure. Premier League will find
no,
you.
but it's typical Liverpool bullshit. I've just dealt with this my entire life, so I don't know what to say. I constantly see Liverpool fans bitch about things when things like this go their way the entire fucking time. How about you stop picking and choosing when it's appropriate to you and admit when you have luck like this? It was a lucky goal because I've seen the tail end of what was meant to happen in the Real Madrid Valencia game. I am thinking I'm of the train of thought that the referee did the right thing calling that goal off, or rather than calling the goal off, called the game off because he said the corner kick is the final thing that happens. If you don't score off the cross, then it's over. So they cross the corner, they try to score, they don't, and then a bunch of other shit happens. Then he blows it off, and then a cross comes in, which Bellingham scores. Whilst in this, it's just completely crazy additional time, and then Darwin scores. So fuck off. I think in that regards, they got super lucky. So for me, yeah, they got super lucky. But I can't think of a better club to be on the receiving end of something like that than Nottingham Forest, who haven't been charged, who
Yeah.
should be charged, and then make sure that Everton are above them. So for
Yeah.
that regards, it's a bit like it sucks that it was Liverpool who did it to them, but beggars can't be choosers. Fuck Nottingham Forest. Well done.
Nice little rant there from an Everton and Barcelona fan, but I tend to agree as well. I think I didn't really watch it that much because this past weekend I was quite busy, but yeah, it seems a bit excessive with the amount of time that was played there. And Liverpool got the final result that they wanted in the end, as they have done a couple times this season already. But yeah, moving on when it comes to the matches, Luton and Aston Villa, we both had Aston Villa winning that game, and they ended up winning. It was just not 2-0 or 3-1. Then we had Burnley Bournemouth, and I had 1-0 Bournemouth, and that was pretty close to being correct, but Bournemouth scored another goal quite at the end of right at the end of the game, meaning it was 2-0, so it was a 2-goal margin. Like you had 3-1, but yeah, ended up just being 2-0 for Bournemouth there. Man City, Man United, we both expected Man City to kind of blast Man United with a lot of goals. They did score 3 goals in the end, but that wasn't correct for either of us. But we had Man City winning at least because that was pretty much a given for that game. And then Sheffield United, Arsenal. I had a 4-0 win for Arsenal and thought I was being a bit overzealous with that, but they ended up winning 6-0 and just completely dominating that game away from home. So yeah, in general, we both had 6 correct results and I had 1 correct scoreline. So again, still keeping the same distance when it comes to correct results. And then with the scorelines, I'm actually 4 games ahead of you now, which I'm pretty happy about. You need to catch up now, Kevin, because I keep getting like 1 each week more than you. So yeah, let's see if that keeps happening for the next few game weeks. Let's go on to the future predictions for this next upcoming game week. We can go through the matches quickly here as well. Man United, Everton, I have a 1-1 draw actually. I think it's going to be, I think it's just too tough to call. I think Man United are kind of bad currently without Højlund. He's not going to be back for this game either. I think Man United and Everton are sort of even. I was close to going with a 2-1 win for Man United here, but I think it's going to be a draw. I don't know. I think Everton can pull it out and get 1 point from this game. But as an Everton fan, how hopeful are you in an away game at Old Trafford? Do you think there's any chance you have a 3-1 win for Man United here? What do you reckon in this match in general?
I mean, we're better at away from home currently. We lose more games at Goodison than we win. So fuck Dyche, fuck the players and everything in between. But in regards to that, do I think that we could get a draw? Yes. But do I think we'll get anything more than a draw? No. Do I think we'll get more than a loss? No. Because I think Everton are in a weird place right now with injuries, with like kind of Gay's not playing for sure. Calvert-Lewin's sort of injury right now is weird. Fitness is off. Everything's just kind of off, and I don't know if it's the players. I don't know if it's the manager. I don't know what it is, but we're just in a really weird moment right now. So I don't see us winning that game. I don't expect a positive result. I'm going to be working whilst the game starts and all this type of shit too. So it'll be it'll of course be on the background, but I don't know how much interest I'll have in watching it simply because I just don't like what I've seen from the team for a long while. Um, Obviously, Garnacho's goal of the year is still fresh on my head, so I reckon it will just be more of the same, especially with them being at Old Trafford. Yes, I mean they lost to Fulham just um, 2 weeks ago or 2 game weeks ago in that regard, so they're not good either. But it seems like everyone's springboard to get back into form is playing us right now. So yeah, I don't see a reason why I should be optimistic about our chances
Fair enough.
currently.
Fair enough. I'm slightly more optimistic, but we'll see. Bournemouth, Sheffield United, we both have a big win for Bournemouth. 3-0 I have gone with. You going with 4-0 there against Sheffield United. Could see it going both ways, to be honest. I could see Bournemouth scoring a lot of goals in that game, but yeah. You never know. Maybe they only won 2-0. But I don't think Sheffield United have much to go with in this game in general. So yeah, pretty easy prediction for both of us, I think. Crystal Palace against Luton, we've both gone with a 2-1 win for Crystal Palace. And yeah, we can actually just put in the whole Bournemouth-Luton game as well, because we just talked about Bournemouth, or I just talked about Bournemouth and Luton. And we have that result the same as well. Bournemouth-Luton 2-1 for Bournemouth. So in general, I predicted 5 goals for Bournemouth. You predicted 6 goals for Bournemouth. That's quite a lot. And we both predicted 2 goals for Luton in this game week. So make of that what you will, I guess, in terms of the goals. If you were to predict the 2 goals for Luton, do you think it's going to be Carlton Morris only? Do you think there's only any other potential goal scorers from Luton? I
Who else
mean,
scores for them?
Adebayo, if he's back fit. I
Yeah,
guess I guess centre back
Adebayo
from without to
maybe.
cross.
Ross Barkley,
Barkley,
obviously, if he's
Ogbene.
capable. Ogbene randomly, I guess, but okay.
Yeah. It's most likely going to be Carlton Morris and a penalty, most likely, if you're going to score. Or like a Doughty free kick. So, like set piece assists, I think. But yeah, not too much to go with there. But yeah, I think we're pretty much in agreement there. Luton will lose both games, but they'll get a goal. So maybe they'll get some FPL points, but we'll see. Wolves against Fulham. I've gone with a 1-0 Fulham win, actually, and you've gone with a 2-1 Wolves win. And I think this is purely just down to the fact that Wolves have so many injured players. Huang is injured, Cunha is injured, Neto got injured last game as well. I think Wolves are just really struggling with injuries at the moment. And I think Fulham are sort of in a good moment currently. They've won a couple games now, surprisingly. So I've gone to win for Fulham there. You're going to win for Wolves. And honestly, I could see it go both ways. I have a 1-0 win for Fulham. You have a 2-1 win for Wolves. So I think either way, we're both expecting this game to be pretty close. We just have a different result, which is interesting for the predictions at least. Arsenal-Brentford, again, we're expecting Arsenal to just go through and win easily, as they have been doing lately. They've just been really, really, really good in general lately. So what do you make of Arsenal's title chances now that they're playing so well? Is it just down to the fact that they're playing poor teams, or do you think there's actually something here and they could challenge for the title now?
Yeah.
Or win the title even?
Honestly, I think it's just due to them playing the right teams. I mean, losing 1-0 to Porto is not it's the sign of strength that you expect it to be. Um, that being said, to become champions, you have to win against these sort of clubs, and the Premier League is comprised of very many of these sort of clubs. No matter how much they try to say otherwise. Oh, look how good the Premier League is. Yeah, Luton's there. So so like for me, Burnley and Sheffield United, all dog shit teams currently, in comparison to the rest of the league, sure, but like just generally speaking, the standard there isn't that great. And I'm gonna rattle a bunch of Premier League fans with this, but um, I think I think it's as good as any in that regards. Because like if you're giving Liverpool the credit to go and do it as well, then you should be doing the same for Arsenal. But I just think in terms of squad depth and stuff like that, it's so lacking compared to Liverpool and because Liverpool have 5 left wingers at the very least, but um, in comparison to the other two clubs, their squad isn't as great. They are also having to make sure to go through against Porto, which I think they will at home at the Emirates, but I think it's very unlikely that they win the league, but I don't see it not happening as well, especially if they can beat City. If
Yeah.
they can beat City, then of course, but they've what was it? A draw or did they end up did they get a fluky win against City in
They beat
the
City the last game,
yeah,
1-0.
yeah, yeah.
And they beat
1-0.
Liverpool
Like
3-1 not too long ago.
yes. Uh so like them at home is one thing, but them away from home, that's gonna have to be the thing where that's what makes you champions,
Yeah.
basically. That's what happened last year as well. KDB just went riot at the Emirates, so Can Declan Rice do the same thing at
Yeah.
the Etihad? I mean, I hope so, because that means that your prophecy of Declan Rice, the chosen one to win the Prem,
He's a
fair enough.
certified winner, so he wins
Um,
everywhere he goes.
yep, and yet KDB won the treble. So, with that being said, I still think it's City, Arsenal, cool in that order.
Yep.
So I think Arsenal will claw it back from Liverpool. I think Salah being out for a question mark is going to be a big miss, especially if he misses the game against City as well. If
Yep.
Salah's out for the City game, which I don't know if they've
He's
confirmed or
back in
not
training
yet.
now, so I assume he starts. I assume he plays.
Yeah, if he starts, then that game is different. But if he doesn't start, I think City's chances of winning at Anfield is significantly high.
Yep. We'll get to that pretty soon, actually. So let's just go through the fixtures that we have remaining. Aston Spurs, we both have this as a high scoring game. I have it as 2-2. I think it's just too even to call, basically. You go with a Aston Villa win at home. I think that's fair enough. 3-2 you have there for Aston Villa, and I think that could happen. But yeah, I think it's just going to be a high scoring game in general. Watkins and Son probably profiting from that, and a bunch of FPL teams. Brighton Nottingham Forest, we both gone with a 2-1 win for Brighton. Still have faith in Brighton, I guess, or just not faith in Nottingham Forest, and that's why we're going with a 2-1 win here. West Ham Burnley, we both expect West Ham to win, finally. This is the first game week in a while that I've actually had West Ham as winners, and hopefully that becomes true. 2-0 would be nice as well for those of us starting Areola in goal. And then we come to the Liverpool-Man City game that we were just talking about just now. I have it as a 1-1 because I think Liverpool at Anfield is just really, really, really hard to beat. But if any team would beat them at Anfield, it would be Man City. So you go with a 2-1 win for Man City, and I think that could be correct as well. If I had to choose between Liverpool or Man City, even though it's at Anfield, and I do think Liverpool are really good, I would still lean towards Man City winning the game because they just have a stronger squad, especially currently with so many injuries for Liverpool. So I think it could go either way, but most likely a draw and potentially a City win. Liverpool win, maybe I'll give it like a 20% chance or something. Not too much, but yeah, with Salah back, anything can happen because Salah is still, for me, the best player in the league, but I don't know where you stand on that. But yeah, Liverpool Man City, what are you looking forward to in this game in particular?
Oh, yes. Roma scored again. Sorry. You asked the question. Karabag are beating
Yeah,
Leverkusen 2-0. What the
I was
hell?
about to
Okay,
say.
yeah.
Very good for West Ham. West Ham's chances in the Europa League. I'm happy about that myself. So, no, just Liverpool, Man City. What do you expect this game to look like, basically?
With the are we are we predicting it with Mo Salah starting, Mo Salah not
Most all
starting?
starting, most
Because
likely.
if Mo Salah starts, I think it could easily be a 1-1 affair. It's like Liverpool City tends to be like a dog shit game compared to City Liverpool. So
Last year was 1-0, wasn't it? Salah scoring like the turn where he
like
spun around Cancelo or
like a
whatever. And that basically
yeah,
sent Cancelo to the shadow realm. He was never to be seen again, pretty
yeah.
much.
And then starting right back for Barcelona.
Yeah.
So it tends to be a tight affair, so that's why I put a tight score. I wouldn't go and predict like a 5-1 win to City at this rate. Do I see like it seems like such a cop out, but obviously I can see this being a win, draw, or loss for Liverpool in that regards because they're so good at home that they could fortify the fortify the sort of no loss against City, but I still think City's team is just too strong at the minute. Um, Sort of good vibrations in terms of the team. Holland's back within the goals. They even got Julian Alvarez scoring again. And it's looking good. Like I think City are going into this knowing that they've been in this position before. They are currently still the treble winners, so people need to put some fucking respect on their name in regards to that because
Yeah.
it's just been a lot of. Um, like I feel like a lot of talk has been towards Liverpool and Arsenal in regards to the Prem, but like, why wouldn't you? Why are you looking past the actual title holders in
Yeah,
terms of that? So, like, I think City are going to run riot. Is KDB of it? Like, I think KDB is like actually going to start this game as well,
yeah, he
which
got
will
rested now
be
in the Champions League, didn't he?
yeah. So like, I think it's all systems go, and I hope personally because I fucking hate Liverpool that Liverpool lose. So it might be a bias thing, but if you are to take away the bias out of it, I think this is the correct way to predict it.
Yeah,
Either Liverpool manage to not lose, or City just gets a narrow win.
yeah. I think it's going to be a really interesting game. It's going to be what dictates basically the end of the season in terms of the title challenge. I think if City lose this game, with Liverpool now going ahead and then they have Arsenal left as well, could be difficult for them, but I do think there's a decent chance that they will win this game as well. So it's going to be a huge game in general. I'm really looking forward to see it all happen as well right after the West Ham game, which is nice for me. And then the final game I have to talk about, since we already talked about Bournemouth Luton, is the game between Chelsea and Newcastle. I go with a 1-1 draw here. Just can't really decide what to do with these two teams. Two, on paper, really good teams that are just struggling for whatever reason this season. So I just go with a 1-1 draw, basically. You go with a 2-1 Chelsea win. You tend to like have a favorable view of Chelsea, even though they keep disappointing you. So what makes it different this time? Why do you think Chelsea will win in this game now against Newcastle at home?
I reckon Pochettino will get sacked otherwise, so
Do you think he should be sacked, by the way?
I don't know. That is my answer. I don't know.
Because you're not too fond of Pochettino from ruining Messi at PSG and being Espanol, all that stuff. So
Like, I reckon like Poch is super lucky that the League Cup went the way it did. He took Liverpool the distance and stuff, and like, what are you meant to do when like all your players are injured in terms
I
of
mean, they did play a lot of youngsters for Liverpool, so
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, not don't get it twisted. Like, but that's how bad Chelsea are right now, that they have to have their full starting 11 with like Nkunku on good form to even
yeah,
have a chance against a B side,
he's injured
B Tech
again.
Liverpool. So like again,
4-0 Roma.
that's yeah, I know, and also the fact that
2-1 Bayer Leverkusen as well.
well, Liverpool are just going through Sparta Prague, no problem. Um, Darwin Nunez with the brace. Oh, gonna feel himself before the City game. Um, so the point I was trying to make about Chelsea is I just think that this is going to be a game where they can bounce back. I think this is sort of the game that Newcastle can afford to sort of not get 3 points in.
I mean, you
Um,
say Pochettino will be sacked if they lose, but if Newcastle lose, is the
I
team for
don't
Eddie
think
Howe
I
to
don't
go?
think I don't think Eddie Howe will go. Like
No,
I don't think so.
even at the end of
Like
the season.
no.
As a West Ham
Like
fan,
what's
I'm
it?
hoping.
I
I want to
mean,
have
you
Eddie
would
Howe
hope
myself.
that, but like if you really think about it, like they didn't really go that crazy in the transfer market or anything. They
Yeah,
didn't do what Chelsea did and are have legitimate struggles because their strikers can't keep fit. Isak is constantly in and out of the team, and of course scores the minute he's back in action, the legend. But Wilson's getting injured. Then they've had like it's only Anthony Gordon I can think of who's like very consistently and very luckily been able to um get things going. So yeah, like I see what you mean. Like if Newcastle don't win this game, the fight for a top six is going to be difficult. But
yeah.
at the end of the day, oh my God, just why did I look at the table just to see where Everton were? Um, I've completely lost my train of thought. But that being said, Chelsea at home, you know, I expect there has to be some sort of response to everything that's been going on lately, including Poch. I also think this might be a good game for Cole Palmer as well. So
Yep.
I think that's why I'm angling a Chelsea win currently. But don't get surprised if Newcastle absolutely batter them with Isak back.
Yeah.
And
Could happen.
I don't, again, this is one of those more difficult games to predict in that regard because I don't mind seeing a 1-1 draw. Well, I wouldn't mind, I guess, in terms of like, oh, 1-1's a bit boring. But I can see it being a draw. I can see Chelsea winning. I can also see Newcastle. Like for
Yeah.
me,
It's
this was a
tough.
difficult game to predict. I'm
Yeah.
only giving Chelsea the edge because they're at home.
Yeah. Fair enough. And that's basically the predictions for this upcoming game week. Let's see what happens on the next podcast. We're going to talk about the results and what happened in those games. But I think it's an interesting game week in general, not just for FPL with the double game week, but also obviously the Liverpool Man City fixture, especially. It's going to be really interesting. So, yeah, looking forward to this weekend in general. But let's move on to the next segment of the podcast, and that is the weekly wildcard drafts. And if you watched my video, I have actually changed my stance a little bit from what I think is the ideal strategy if you're wildcarding now, and that's why you see so many changes in the team in general. Because basically in game week 27, I had the thought of doing a wildcard and then bench boosting in 28, but now in game week 28, I think, and then obviously not free hitting in 29 in that case. But now with this Game Week 28 wildcard, I think I'm more leaning towards the Game Week 29 free hit strategy, where I picked basically the best possible team to have for the entirety of the season, because you're wildcarding at this point. If you're wildcarding, as you are with the week wildcard drafts, you want this team to last you for a long while. So I don't think having a lot of Luton players and stuff, especially, is that viable if you want to have a long-term team, basically. So I made a lot of changes just because of that. Was able to fit in Salah and Haaland in the same team. This is quite an expensive team, so maybe you're not able to afford this. But if you're not able to afford this team, I think it's pretty easy to just downgrade Son to Foden, basically. And it's not that big of a difference in general. But yeah, looking at this team, any players you yourself would really like to have currently? Because, yeah, obviously you would want to have a wildcard now since you've used it a couple game weeks ago. What do you think about the team in general? Any players that stand out to you, apart from the obvious ones, obviously? You have Gabriel, Saka, pretty given. Palmer and Son, pretty much given players as well. Salah from game 30 onwards is going to be pretty important to have, and then the three strikers are pretty much nailed as well. So yeah, in general, what do you think about the team? Any honorable mentions that have been left out? Any like cheap defenders you like the look of that I haven't mentioned yet? Because Botman was kind of like I don't know. He's just Newcastle, has a double game again 34. That's why he's in there, basically, kind of pick. But any suggestions to the wildcard draft in general?
Yeah, I mean, considering the fact that you have zero fucking Luton Town players tells me everything that I need to know. So if I ever hear you suggesting a Luton Town player ever again, I'll punch you in the fucking face.
I mean, if you're not freeing in 29, I think Luton players are interesting. But
You're
for
lying.
the foreseeable
You
future,
are lying. You're lying. You're never.
nah.
Don't lie to me.
If you need enough players for 29, and you have a
Yeah,
double game
for
week now,
20. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
one or two you could have. I did think about having Doughty, especially. I think I could have had him rather than Botman in this team as the final defender. I think I probably would have done that if I would do it again. But yeah, apart from him, I just think Solanke, Watkins, and Haaland are better picks than Mr. Morris currently, especially for free in 29. If you get Haaland against Liverpool and Arsenal, yes, tough fixtures, but it is City, it is Haaland. Like I always say, there's a lot of arguments against Haaland, but the argument for Haaland will always be it's Haaland, it's City. It's going to work itself out, basically. So
Yep.
I think it's a nice differential to have, which is kind of crazy to say that Haaland could be a differential, but that could very well be the case if you look at his fixtures. Liverpool away, blank in 29, and then Arsenal at home, and then Aston Villa at home. I don't think it's too tough, really. City is the tough fixture. They are the tough opponents, and they can beat anyone. So I quite like Haaland as sort of like a differential sort of pick. But he is number 9 for a reason, because he is sort of slightly more droppable than the other strikers, for example, I think. Especially Solanke with his captaincy shout this week. Especially. I also think Salah for the Brighton at home and Sheffield United at home fixtures, he's a better captaincy option than Haaland. So that's why I'm slightly ahead of Haaland as well in this draft. Yeah. Any other thoughts? Obviously, this is geared more towards not having a free hit in 34 as well, so having double gaming players from Newcastle, Dubravka, Botman, and potentially someone else that I'm going to talk about pretty soon as well, who you did mention a couple times now. And then Garnacho is also another like double gaming player. Could also have Munoz from Crystal Palace. Actually, looking at this as a defender, probably should have had him. Maybe I should have had him rather than Botman because he's a nice double gaming player in 34 as well, playing really attackingly in Glasner's system in Crystal Palace. But still waiting to see what happens with Crystal Palace and if they look good under the new manager or not, because it's hard to gauge now. In general, what do you make of Palace? Like that's going to be a pretty nice team to have players from in Game Week 34, at least with the double game week that they'll have at home to Newcastle and at home to West Ham. I think they have. SA is back playing now. Elise is still out for a little while. They have a new manager. What do you make of the new manager in general, the former Frankfurt manager, Glasner, and Crystal Palace going forward? Any players from them you would consider for the long-term future?
I mean, Eze is obviously a fun differential, especially now that he's scoring free kicks like he's Ronaldinho or something. So,
Yeah.
for me, it's definitely Eze or potentially one of their cheapo defenders.
Chris
I
Richards has
think,
been playing lately a lot.
yeah,
3.9 in
um,
FPL.
yeah. So that's pretty much the two I'd consider, but I'd say wait a little.
Yeah,
I think
of
there's
course.
much better options. Unless there's like a max exodus of injuries and all this type of craziness, I'd say wait. I think Eze is definitely on my watch list because I just really like him and I like
Yeah,
Elise as well. So that's potentially someone I'd say to definitely look out for. I guess in terms of players that I might have some ag with in terms of your weekly wildcard draft is maybe Eight Nuri because
yeah,
now with all the injuries and stuff like that, how much do we trust Wills going forward?
yeah,
I still think he's a big good pick, and I think due to all the injuries, he's 100% gonna play and all this type of stuff. So
yeah,
I think in that regards it's good, but in terms of I don't know, in terms of could you have had someone different? Yes, but it's also the 11th pick, so it's
yeah.
not that
There's also
big of a thing.
we still have an international breakdown coming up pretty soon. So game week 30, which is like the next game week, he's not even going to play game week 30 because as nil away, I would bench him regardless. But it's pretty much game week 31 onwards, Burnley away, and then they have some pretty good fixtures, and then he has a double game week in 37 as well, most likely, potentially game week 34 as well, double. They have just really good fixtures in general towards the end of the season, and yeah, there's a pretty long break now. Obviously, game week 29 is not a factor because that's a free hit week. Fulham at home is still a decent fixture, even if they have a lot of injuries. You expect them to win that game, for example. So I think long term he's a pretty decent pick, and it's slightly influenced by the fact that I brought him in and he got 12 points for me. So I do sort of feel a bit of kinship with Aitnori, and I do quite like him in general. I think he's always been like a tidy player, but I think in general his level has gone up quite a bit this season, and a lot of Wolves fans would tell you the same as well. Like he's been pretty solid and a pretty certain pick for Gary O'Neill there at Wolverhampton. So yeah, again, these defenders, Gusto, Aitnori, Brathwaite, Botman, could have been a lot of other defenders. Doughty, like I mentioned, Munoz or Chris Richards from Palace, for example. There are a lot of options, and doubling up on Arsenal as well. I'm only or tripling up. I mean even, but doubling up on their defense is also an option with Saliba. Ben White has been looking more offensively minded lately. Kivior, if he stays as the left back for Arsenal, maybe he's like an option if Zinchenko is going to be out injured, or if Zinchenko is just dropped in general, because Kivior has been pretty good.
Mhm.
What do you make of that in general? Because Kivior could be a really huge differential if he keeps playing now. 4.3, I think, is an FPL as an Arsenal
I
defender.
mean, the thing about Kivior is that a lot of people forget that he was in the Serie A back in the day, and when he was playing in the sort of Spezia side, he could play both center back and left back.
Mm-hmm.
So he's super good. And I mean, I was the one who wrote his sort of review going in and all this type of stuff, and did the scouting report. And I said he has the capability of becoming a very good player. It's sort of similar to I wouldn't say as high of a talent as Mickey van de Ven, but like that caliber of talent, though. So if given the right place to, so, it's so weird to say, but if he's given the right environment to grow, he's gonna grow. And I think Zinchenko is sort of showing his limitations
Yeah.
with which is his body at this point. Unfortunately, he just seems to get injured all the time.
Mm.
I mean, to the point where his teammates make jokes about like the Gabriel thing from earlier in the year might have been at some point last year, but basically there's a siren going off because an ambulance is coming by, and Gabriel just says, "Oh, there goes your taxi." So like I think Zinchenko hasn't established himself as the A side of the left back. It's sort of like what happened with Ben White and Tomiyasu. Like everyone assumed Tomiyasu would become the right back for Arsenal, but Ben White has just made it his
Yeah.
own, and it's the
Yeah.
hero at Arsenal and all this type of stuff, where it's a big fan favorite. And I think Kivior has all the capabilities of that too. My biggest concern about that is the imminent return of Jurien Timber,
Yeah.
and just to see
I was
what
about to bring
could
that up as
happen with
well.
that. I think Timber is a fantastic talent and
Yeah.
does step overs, even though he really shouldn't. And I got to see that in person against City, which they ended up winning. Um, so yeah, like Timber is quality, but he is more comfortable on the right hand side. So it'll be
Mm.
interesting to see. I think Kibir will still get a run out because he's been doing such a good job. So I think Kibir is a fun differential, but Gabriel White and
Saliba.
Saliba are the obvious picks.
Yeah.
So like if you want to have a sort of backup Arsenal defender. I mean, you don't really want to use up an Arsenal space just like that, considering they're high flying and everything.
Yeah.
But I don't think Kivior is the worst stash option. Like in a game where it's like Sheffield United at home or something like that, where you can just bank on playing both of them, then go for it.
Yeah.
But I would I would recommend people, instead of going for Kivior and a second defender anyways, I'd say go with Odegaard or Martinelli as a fun
Or
differential because
Havertz.
yeah, I
Three
think
double
all of
digit
them
goals
are,
in a row.
yeah, and I think he's finally found his rhythm at the club.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've liked what I've seen from him. And is it 60 million? Absolutely not. But is it better than what a lot of players have been doing lately? Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's just about getting into rhythm, and to do that, you have to be consistently in the team. So hopefully Arteta gets that he can play Havertz more than he has. Then awesome. So yeah, I think that pretty much nails my thoughts on that matter in that
Yeah.
regards. I think Kivior is amazing, but it's just one of those things where I reckon until he makes a mistake, he'll get to play.
Yeah. I think so too. I think he's done pretty well, and I'm pretty impressed by him in general. Saul actually came on for Liverpool now, so he's fit, and he scored a goal that was disallowed for offside, but it was a really like signature Salah goal as well. So, so yeah,
Oh,
he is fully back and ready to play against City for sure. Even though it didn't, the goal didn't count. It's still nice to see for anyone that has or are looking to bring in Salah this week already potentially. But at least for game 30, he's most likely going to be back unless he gets injured again. So yeah, I think he's a really nice option for the foreseeable future in FPL, especially if you're free hitting in game 29.
it's just nice to have a player of his caliber back.
Yeah, Salah is amazing as always. Yeah, let's move on to your current plans in this game week, and I have actually some suggestions for you. And to your dismay, one of them is getting in a Luton player for -4 no less. Potentially, I'm still not 100% sold on Doughty, but I think in your situation with Pinnock, more than likely not going to play in game week 29. That's the only reason you had him in the squad in the first place. You don't really want to have Brentford defenders for the long term. And Doughty at least has the double game week fixture in 28 and then plays in 29. So you do get that advantage from getting him in. But I think the main part is getting Solanke in. And I think currently, with your situation, I think Haaland out is the one thing that makes the most sense, because that brings you enough money to have Salah for Gaming 30. We just mentioned how Salah could be really good for the future. Haaland has those tough matches, so yes, ideally you would want to keep him, but in your situation you can't really go with ideally, because it's not an ideal situation. So I think Haaland to Solanke makes the most sense. You get Solanke as the captaincy option this week, because currently you have Palmer, Bowen, maybe Watkins as captaincy options. I don't know who you would pick out of this crop, basically, if you don't have Solanke, but it feels pretty instinctive to me that you're going to get Solanke. But you can speak on it yourself. What do you think about the transfers? The other thing with doubt is the fact that, yes, you still have Taylor playing, but it's West Ham away, and it's Taylor. He's not going to get that many points. So having a defender that actually plays and has 2 matches on top of that would be nice, even for a -4, I think. But yeah, what do you think about your team in general? Estepinian, will he get one more chance against Nottingham Forest?
I mean, I guess he has to.
He sort of have to, yeah.
I don't like my fucking team. I mean, it's again, this just proves everything about it. You take these things into consideration, and none of them were the wrong calls or anything like that. Having a Brentford defender for 29 made all the sense. Having Tony in this period made sense. Didn't work out. Porro, who's been great, got injured. But Charleston, who was scoring goals for fun in my team, got injured. So like, what can I say? I got blessed with bad luck.
Yeah, Estepinian looked really good as well when we brought him in on the wildcard. He was fantastic, played every single game, and then De Zerbi decided to be De Zerbi and annoy you even more. So,
well, has Leverkusen gotten the draw now? They might have.
Maybe, yeah, 2-2. Bad news for West Ham. Patrick Schick, blast from the past. But
yeah. West Ham. Do you still believe that you're going to win this whole thing?
Yeah, of course. Europa League, easy. We have David Moyes at the wheel.
This is not gonna go well for you guys. Like, when I look at the teams that are left as well,
Roma, Leverkusen, Liverpool, a couple good teams there, but hey,
AC Milan are there too.
Yeah, they will knock each other out, and then we'll beat whoever's left in the final. That's fine.
And Marseille, Villarreal aren't. Oh, imagine if you get Marseille. Oh my god, the Demi derby.
He's not there anymore, so.
I know, but
we can't face Vasco da Gama in the Europa League at least, so.
Yeah. But back to what I was saying. Yeah, fuck my entire team. I'm gonna go -12. I'm gonna.
For real, what are your actual moves? Like, what would you do yourself? Do you like my potential transfers?
Solanke in is a must.
Yeah, but who goes out? Haaland by default.
I feel like yes.
Yeah, because you want Salah in game 30 against Brighton.
Probably
against the Serbia's Brighton. You want him.
Yeah, I'll probably triple captain him.
Yeah, with your non-existent triple captaincy chip.
Yes,
you'll bench boost his points.
Solanke 100%.
Yeah,
I think Solanke in is a must. I think everyone's. Yeah, I think this could this potentially break the triple captaincy amount of, like captaincy.
Maybe.
I don't think so, but it'll be very close. Yeah. I think he's the most obvious captain, and he's gonna get a red card in the Sheffield. He's gonna do an Emmanuel Dennis. This is what we all get.
Morris is gonna do Emmanuel Dennis.
Potentially. I think Morris is gonna get like 2 fucking bullshit penalties, and people are gonna be like, "Oh, see,
probably,
I was right."
Probably.
So yeah.
Assisted by Doughty.
Hopefully not.
Well, if you have Doughty, hopefully maybe for you. So you're looking to do Solanke in, but any other transfers? You said jokingly -12. Or is that a joke?
No, I'll probably just play it safe.
Hold on to Solanke and then just see what happens.
If there's an inkling of a good player to have ready for game week 29 and beyond, then maybe that as a -4, but I don't want to go above -4.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Let's move on to someone with slightly better outlook for the future in Kimo, the 3rd founding member of the FPL Scope podcast. And I did mention I was going to bring up a player that you brought up, and that is Alexander Isak. I think for those of you guys who are freeing, or like me, freeing in 29, and you need the money to get Salah in game 30, and you need to sell Salah to get that money, I think Isak is the obvious replacement. He has really good fixtures. Chelsea away is still a decent fixture. Chelsea are not that good defensively. Game week 30 onwards, they have West Ham, they have Everton, both of our teams who are pretty bad. They have the double game week game 34 most likely. I think Isak, now that he is the set striker for Newcastle, Callum Wilson is injured for basically the entirety of the season. I think Isak makes all the sense in the world if you're free hitting in 29, and that would be his triple up on Newcastle players as well if he keeps Trippier. He could also downgrade Trippier and get another defender in because his defense is currently pretty lackluster. Ake against Liverpool away, pretty bad. Konsa against Spurs, he's going to concede. Branthwaite against Man United, that could actually be the best defender this game week for Kimo, and that's saying something, I guess. Trippier injured, and Bradley against Man City, I wouldn't play him either. So his defense is in pretty dire straits. So maybe he needs to bring in a defender. Most likely he's going to bring in Doughty because he is template AF. And he's most likely going to bring in Morris as well rather than Isak. But we'll see what happens with Kimo. A different transfer as well. I did mention potentially, or I do have like a suggestion potentially for doing Turner, who's just not going to play ever again because he's the worst goalkeeper of all time, basically. And bring in Neto basically to have him for the double game week in 29, and then potentially the double game week in 34. But we'll see about that when it comes to the result, because obviously they're going to go out of, or Brighton are going to go out of Europe, and that's going to affect Bournemouth's double game week chances in 34 potentially. So yeah, I think he has a lot of options. Strengthening his defense is something that I haven't listed, but I did mention that now. Looking at his team, what do you think is the most important thing for Kimo to do in general? He has Solanke as captain, pretty much sorted for him. Has a pretty decent team in general. He is going to free it in 29, I'm assuming. I mean, he has Areola, Konsa, Son, Watkins, and that's basically it. 4 players for game 29. Pretty obvious free hit, I would assume. Or what do you think about Kimo's team for 28, 29, and the foreseeable future?
Yeah, I think it's pretty pointless to bank the transfer. So at the very least, do the one transfer and then do the free hit. So yeah, it's just a question of whether he fancies Neto, even though I think Areola against Burnley should be enough, even though it'd be so typical fucking West Ham to concede to Burnley. So I think just a question of which one he prefers, Holland or um, doing the Neto to Turner move or doing the Holland to Isak move. I mean, personally, I think just do one move and then leave it at that and
Yeah.
just free hit, because even if he were to go crazy with moves, he's not going to be able to salvage anything for game week 29 in
Yeah,
regards
he's
to
got to
that.
free it in
So
29.
yeah.
Unless he wildcards, he could wildcard as well. But I think this team is more than good enough to not wildcard. He has the
Yeah.
essential players. He has Palmer, Saka, Foden, Son, Holland, Watkins, Solanke. Basically all the players that you want, basically. So,
Yep.
um,
So in that regards, I'd say, yeah, I'd say just do the one transfer and yeah, take it easy, I guess, because I really like his team. It's just a shame that a bunch of his top players are playing pretty difficult, like especially his defense is playing really difficult, besides Ariel, of course. But other than that, there's not much you can really do. It's just a question of whether he has the stones to do Holland out and whether he has the stones to actually trust Isak to stay fit.
yeah. I think he could potentially also, rather than selling Foden for Salah and giving 30, he could sell Son for Salah, and that would be only 3 million difference. And seeing as he has 1.7 million in the bank, and he has Trippier, who's like what 7 point something at this point,
Hmm.
he could potentially downgrade Trippier to a pretty cheap defender and have enough money to do Son to Salah and giving 30 instead. But he just brought Son into the team, so maybe it would be too short term in that sense. I don't know, but I think ideally you'd want to sell Foden for Salah in game week 30. But could do Son and sell Trippier at this point and get a cheaper defender who potentially doubles in 34 as well. So a lot of options, I think, for Kimo. It'll be interesting to see what he does. If he goes with the Isak move, I think that would be really interesting. I think Isak is just not talked about enough currently. because a lot of people are still free hitting in 34, and you don't really need Isak, I guess, if that's the case. But he does have a really nice fixture in 35 as well against Sheffield United at home, and that's very much into the future. So you can't really, especially with Isak who gets injured all the time, you can't really count on him for that. But I think he's just a really nice pick for basically as many game weeks as he can last before he gets injured again, pretty much. So I think he's a really nice option for anyone free hitting in 29. And that also counts for the manager of the week, who I also have sort of the same type of transfers suggested for. Hold on to Isak. I think that's the best way of getting the Salah money, and selling Holland basically to fund that. I think this team is even better set up for the future as well, with the double Arsenal and Gusto as well. I like defensively. He's in my wildcard drafts. He's in my own team as well. I could also do the goalkeeper move, the Bravka to Neto, but again, or Ariola to Neto should probably be, because the Bravka does double in 34, so you don't really need Neto for that if he even doubles in 34. So, but yeah, I think it's kind of similar here. Could also, similarly to Kimo's team, he has Virgil van Dijk, who's pretty expensive. Could do Van Dijk to Sabarni and bench Gusto, which is sort of the same thing that I'm doing this week. So he could do that as well, but I think he needs to do something more drastic to get the money to get Salah in Game Week 30, as most people will look to do, especially. So yeah, anything different for this team compared to Kimo's team? It's pretty similarly set up. It's just the defense is slightly better, I think.
I mean, not slightly better,
very much better than Kimo. So he's better set up, and he also doesn't really need to worry about bench boost either, because he used it. So any different suggestions when it comes to this team compared to Kimo's team then? Or do you think hold on to Isak is a decent move? Or what were you doing even in this case with trying to get Salah in for Game Week 30 and not having enough funds unless you sell Holland basically? Or if you downgrade Foden to someone really cheap, for example, I don't know. What would you look to do to get in Salah? If that's even something you want to do, maybe you want to keep Holland instead rather than getting Salah. I don't know.
I mean, Holland's in a really good mood, so it's kind of difficult for me to pass him by just like that. But I don't love his games going forward, so for a time being, yeah, it's fine, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, it's worked in the past. It's gonna work again, but it's also gonna fucking backfire if you don't get him back quick enough as well. So I
Yeah.
think it's all about timing.
I mean, looking at Man City's fixtures, obviously the next few, they have the fixture now away to Liverpool, which is going to be tough. Then they have the blank in 29, which is not going to be a problem for anyone free hitting that game week, of course. Arsenal at home in Game Week 30, Aston Villa at home in Game Week 31. Still not the best matches. Crystal Palace away in 32 might be a really good match, but again, still don't really know what's going to happen with Glasner and stuff. They did keep the clean sheet against Spurs for like 70 minutes at least, so maybe that's a good sign for them. But then Luton at home in Game Week 33. We know what happened against Luton last time for Holland, so by Game Week 33, I think that's like the latest possible deadline where you can bring Holland back. But yeah, any of these fixtures, I think he could score a lot of goals, especially the fixtures just keep getting better and better. I think Liverpool away, really tough. Arsenal at home, slightly better because it's at home. Aston Villa at home, slightly better than that again. Crystal Palace away, even better than that. And then Luton at home, fantastic. So you need to jump back on Holland at some point if you're selling him. And it basically just pushes the problem further ahead because you still want to keep Salah when you get Holland back. So you basically are just buying yourself time to downgrade other positions to bring in Holland again. On top of having Salah in your team. So I'm happy to be in the position that I'm in currently myself, where I have enough money in the bank to basically just do Foden to Holland pretty easily if I just downgrade Van Dijk this game week. So pretty happy about that myself. But any other comments before we finish off this podcast about this Manager of the Week's team and yeah, his future?
No, generally speaking, I think team looks quite good. It's just a question of tripled up on the city assets, what the plans are there going forward. But other than that, I think this is a really interesting team, especially with the Arsenal double up defensively. I think it's risky as fuck, but it is what it is, and it has worked. I feel like Arsenal. Like, am I wrong in thinking that they they're kind of inconsistent when it comes to clean sheets. I mean, they're
Um,
by city standards, they're miles above them in
yeah, I mean,
terms of keeping.
four
But
clean
they,
sheets in the last, or three clean sheets in the last four matches at least. But before
mhm.
that, they were pretty inconsistent when it comes to clean sheets. So conceded against
So,
Liverpool, conceded against Forest, clean sheet against Palace, conceded against Fulham, conceded against West Ham, conceded against Liverpool, clean sheet against Brighton, conceded against Villa, Luton, Wolves, clean sheet against Brentford, conceded against Burnley, Newcastle, Sheffield United. No, they actually kept the clean sheet against Sheffield United. But yeah, slightly inconsistent, but still, they're by far and away the best defensive team in the league,
sure, but then
especially
they also
lately.
do, and then I mean, he's probably going to free hit in 29, and then how is I guess he'll play.
Play City in Game Week 30, which is the tough fixture.
Yeah, exactly. But then it's Luton, Brighton, Aston Villa, Wolves, Spurs. Oh my God, they have Everton as the final game. Anyways, might try and go to that, to be honest. Um, yeah, so I think it's just about future proofing. So if you can future proof already, go for it because this could add some headaches towards game week 30, but game week 29 for sure, free hit
Yeah,
because your team will need to free hit, of course. But I think it's otherwise, team looks really good. It's just a question of whether you have the balls to bring Isak in because Isak is. I brought Isak in and I thought he was going to get a hat trick against what was it, Nottingham Forest maybe? No,
can't
that wasn't
remember.
the game. It was a different game and he just got injured immediately. So just be careful with Isak. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I mean that's always the thing with he's like he can't get injured, but at the same time, he has what 13? How many goals? 11 goals so far in like 16 starts.
Yeah, I know, of
He
course.
is
He's
amazing when he
quality.
plays.
He's amazing. He was never this injury prone, even in Spain. Like in Spain, he had some issues, but it was like sort of like how Callum Wilson used to be. Used to
Yeah,
be fun injuries. Now it's just like, oh my God, to the point where Newcastle are considering maybe selling you because you just get injured too much. That's crazy to me. That we live in a world where they bought him for 60 mil and now considering selling him, even though he's actually done the business for them. So
yeah.
it's just yeah,
But I
it's
think
just the
the injury thing
tough
is
luck.
always going to be a worry about Isak. So why not get him
Yeah.
while he's healthy and then deal with injury if it comes instead, rather than worrying about can I bring him in now? He might be injured. Can I bring him in now? He might be injured. Then he scores every single game week, and then you buy him in, and then he gets injured actually after you've lost all his points or you haven't gotten all his points. So yeah, I think Isak is a great shout, but yeah, again,
As
proceed with caution.
as someone who's constantly had injuries like derail his FPL season, like that's the re and including having brought Isak in during the right time and then him getting injured. So
Yeah,
that's all I can say.
I
But
mean your luck with
uh,
strikers haven't been the best this season for sure, but yeah.
yeah, so for me, just be careful with that. But I don't think Isak is a bad shout. Do Crystal Palace play? They don't play game week um 29, do they?
No, they don't play in 29, and then they most likely double in 34. Crystal Palace.
Yeah. Because damn, SA against Luton looks good.
Yeah, he looks good for a lot of games as well because they do have that double in 34 most likely. So he's someone that you could also potentially look to bring in. Not you personally, since you don't have a free hit in 29, but at some point he's going to be good, and at some point Elise is going to be back as well, and that's going to help both Elise and SA in general in the team as long as they can stay injury free, which is always the worry about those guys. But yeah, Isak, I think he's good, but any other strikers that you would potentially look at currently? There's a lot of injured strikers, so it's kind of hard to pick anyone. But anyone that stands out to you, Darwin Núñez, is he someone you would go back to
Down the
instead?
line, yeah, for sure. I mean, you're talking about a guy who has double digits goals and assists.
But like
So
as a
yeah,
replacement for Haaland now.
Oh God, no. But like,
It's City now, but then it's Brighton at home in game week 30. It's Sheffield United at home in game week 31. Man United in
yeah,
32. They can score a lot of goals against Man United. Crystal Palace at home in 33.
yeah. I mean, down the line, I think it's fine going with Darwin again, because eventually Solanke will fuck off. So yeah,
I'll bring up another name as well. You had Bournemouth scoring 6 goals, and he's listed as a striker. 4.5, really cheap if you want to have money to get Holland back in for Watkins, for example, in the future. Semenyo for Bournemouth,
yeah.
double game week, those
I
fixtures.
mean, it required a deflection for his 50 chances to go in, but yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I think
he
Semenyo
could
is a
also be
great
a really nice
option, but
option for.
I, I think even think Kluivert's a good option. He seems to be getting into the goals
Yeah,
now as
but he's
well.
not a striker, so you can't
No,
bring
he's
him
a
for Holland.
he's a midfielder, but in terms of anyone who's looking for a differential midfielder, Kluivert's looking like the one. But Solanke's too clear. I think it's probably pissed Solanke off that he did so poorly in the previous game too. So it's going to be a proper statement game. He's going to get like 90 chances and he'll score one.
Yeah. The other option I would potentially have is Gabriel Jesus, but I just don't trust him to play that much. Again, he's also injury prone, but also just the
Yeah,
way Arsenal have looked without him now. I don't know if he gets to play over Havertz, for example, in this team. So
we'll have to wait and see.
yeah,
I think Jesus is going to be one of those weird strikers where he might even want to move.
yeah, maybe potentially, especially if they bring in a new striker in the summer, which they're most likely going to do. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
I think Isak is a good shout. I think Darwin is a good shout. Morris potentially if you like his double, but I think Semenyo if you're looking to free it in 29 anyway is just as good if not better with the fixtures that he has and potentially the double in 34 as well. So a couple different options there if you want to sell Holland and you're not and you are free hitting in 29 and you don't want Morris, for example. So yeah, I think Isak is the standout pick still out of the bunch, but that's basically it for the podcast. Again, I want to remind everyone watching that if you want to be the manager of the week, you can join the mini league, the FPL Scope mini league with the league code V9JT0D and become the manager of the week and get featured on the podcast just like David Sorley did this week. And with that, we have reached the conclusion of this podcast. And as always, with the FPL School podcast, I leave the last word to Kevin. And he's already had a couple of rants and a couple of F-bombs already, so maybe he is not going to have that now. I don't know. Let's see what Kevin has to say for the end of the podcast.
You must be out of your mind if you think that getting rid of Holland for Carlton Morris is the right choice. Fuck Luton Town.
Fair enough. Bye-bye.